Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you are well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more relationship stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. Let's crack on with today's first story, which comes from Anxious American Bride and says, Kidnapping the Bride Tradition. Hi, I 24 female am in the process of wedding planning. My fiance's 24 male side is Scottish and they have many different traditions. I learned one today called Kidnapping the Bride. His cousin explained that a few days before the wedding, a few of my fiance's relatives and friends were going to take me to a pub and would stay there until my fiance found me. They said it's a bonding experience where I hang out with his family and friends and my fiance can bond with mine as they try to find me. His cousin is a bit of a prankster and is more familiar with the town my future in-laws are from. My fiance lives in America but makes several visits to Scotland to visit. We're getting married in Scotland since he has older relatives that couldn't travel to the States. I never heard of this tradition before, but when I looked it up, the best I could find was a version in Germany. The only Scottish tradition that was similar included covering the couple in food as a joke. Asked his grandmother about the last one and they said that they would never do that one. I'm worried his cousin will purposely choose a pub hard to find or pull a prank on me while I'm there. Has anyone else heard of this tradition? Is it common? If so, what happens during it? It sounds harmless, but I have an anxiety disorder and the idea of being alone with his friends and family for hours without him scares me. I'm scared I'll say something dumb or make a fool of myself. I'm close with some of them but not all of them, but I guess that's also the point of this tradition. Someone says to OP on this one, they said, dating myself with this reference, but it's in the movie Maid of Honor. Do you have a reason to believe the cousins would be malicious? It sounds like innocent fun to me and would be a good opportunity to get to know them as you said. To be honest, being worried about making a fool of yourself or anything like that is kind of catastrophizing, and OP says logically, I know they wouldn't do anything intentionally to hurt anyone. It can just be a lot for me. That's totally a me thing. His cousin is a classic extrovert. They just like to joke around a lot. It's more the second thing you said. I want to make a good impression since according to cousin, multiple relatives I haven't met before will be in on it. I'm more worried that they'll try to mess with my fiance by picking somewhere in the middle of nowhere and I'm in an awkward situation for several hours. It's also just a little scary being in a place I've never been with unfamiliar people in a country I've only visited a handful of times. Also never seen Maid of Honor but just checked the wiki. My fiance did mention a tradition involving throwing coins for the children in the wedding, but I haven't heard the peck for a coin. I'll have to ask about that one. We're doing a hand fasting and the family has a special bowl and cup that we both are drinking out of during the ceremony. There's also a specific song my in-laws asked to be played at the last song of the reception. But that's all the traditions I can think of at the top of my head. We're still in the early planning stages. Now, I got to admit, the title had me going, and it's only because of a story that we covered in the past where, you know, a group of friends literally grabbed the woman, took her in a van and sort of drove off with her kind of thing. But I've never heard of this tradition of kidnapping like this before, and it doesn't sound like it's kidnapping as such. It sounds like it's more like, from what I'm reading it as, and I'm not sure if it's true, it sounds like they invite you to a pub and then you go and you just spend time with them and drink and stuff like that. I mean, it sounds pretty fun to me, but I can understand why. And you know, you said you have an anxiety disorder as well. So I think they'd be understanding if you raised this with them and, you know, just raised your concerns with them. It might open up deeper conversations where you can come to some sort of compromise, or it might make you feel a bit easier about the whole situation. This one led me down all sorts of stuff, Googling different traditions, and I was all over the place, like people having their feet beaten and people being banned from the bathrooms, being given a goose. Apparently these are all different countries, by the way. Groom having their shoes stolen. I do love hearing about different traditions and stuff like that. So if you got one that you know about, don't forget to let us know down in the comments as well. But Captain says, I got married in Germany and we did this. As you say, it is a German tradition. We did it during our Polterabend/rehearsal dinner. Apologies about that pronunciation. I did look it up, by the way. The best man surreptitiously guided me away while my husband was distracted. And we hid in the basement of the restaurant/beer garden we had the event at. It was fun, but his best man is a great guy, so it wasn't exactly hard to hang out with him for half an hour while my husband looked for us. Lol. Scarlet Arrow says, I'm not familiar with the tradition, but I think this sounds kind of nice. Like, as long as you're aware as what's happening and have an idea of when it's happening, I do think it could be a fun way to bond with his family a bit. I'm assuming they aren't actually kidnapping you and they just show up and say, hey, let's go to a pub, and you go with them. Maybe your fiance could keep your location on his phone so he knows where you are, and it won't take that long to find you. But if you don't feel comfortable with it, don't do it. There's other ways you can bond with his family. Nukinator says there's a Romanian tradition of stealing the bride away from the wedding reception to see if the groom notices. She's usually taken to a nearby bar and the groom has to pay some sort of ransom to have her returned. Usually perform some command like make up a song about how much you love her or do a cool soccer trick or literally anything. I don't know anything about Scottish traditions, but I'm not surprised there's something similar. Dirthlin says, I have never heard of something like this. I'm not from Scotland though, but this sounds awful. I would definitely not go with this. I don't have anxiety and I feel like crap just thinking of the situation, so I can't imagine how you feel. I would talk to my partner and tell him that it's not something I'm willing to do. Due to your anxiety, it's not going to be fun for you. It's going to make you sick, maybe panic, so both of you need to stand your ground. So OP does come in to update the post and says, I talked to cousin and I'm glad I did. We talked for over an hour. I explained I'm nervous since I've never been anywhere in Scotland without my fiance before and asked about the kidnapping. Cousin admitted that they plan to make it like a puzzle for my fiance to solve since he's mentioned we both love escape rooms. Example, texting clues to the pub's name or location, etc. And even some relatives are in on it already. Example, one of his aunts runs a bookstore and a clue could lead to her, and she'd give him another clue. Cousin explained it had been so long since anyone in the family married and they wanted to go big. Cue terrified bride. I told cousin that it sounds fun, but it might overwhelm me. Cousin tried to reassure me, and after some back and forth, they admitted my fiance's grandparents wanted to rent out a place and make the whole thing a second bridal shower and party for me since lots of relatives won't meet me until closer to the wedding. They were going to drop a surprise party on me. It sounds nice, but wow. I asked cousin about scaling back and we reached a compromise. Cousin will give me the location as soon as it's decided, and per Reddit's advice, I can bring a friend or relative with me. And there's a cut-off point where if my fiance gives up or I've had enough, we text my fiance the location, and I can have as much contact with my fiance via phone as I want. Cousin said, of course you can. This isn't a hostage situation. And they apologize for overwhelming me. Someone says to the OP after, it says, sounds like you've already gotten to know his family better just in discussing all of it. Glad you're able to tell them what concerns you and they were able to compromise for your comfort. Also, this sounds fun to me. At my partner's family, let's step it up. OP says, lol, yeah, it sounds like they really want to connect. I didn't realize how tight-knit fiance's family was before thinking back. According to future dad-in-law, they basically adopted his wife when they married, so it makes sense. And a story where communication wins the day, and I absolutely love to see it. I can understand where OP was coming from, why they'd be nervous about the situation. And I'm glad that they was able to express their feelings to the family and let them know that they are nervous and the anxiety around the situation as well. Hell, I would feel exactly the same if someone told me that I was going to be, taken away to a pub with a bunch of people I don't really know that much for hours on end. That wouldn't make me feel great at the same time. And cousin / the family doesn't sound like they're trying to hurt OP in any way or anything like that. They're just trying to have a bonding experience, the way that they apologize for overwhelming OP and saying this isn't a hostage situation. You can do what you want, basically. But now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What wedding traditions have you heard of? Have you ever been part of one? Let us know down in the comments below. And let's move on to another story. And before we do get into our next story, I do want to give you a warning. It does contain homophobia. So if you do want to skip the story, please feel free to do so. Timestamps are always down in the description and along the timeline below. Thank you. And it does come with an update. It's, am I the arsehole for not closing the door while showering, even though my sister's boyfriend slept over? I, 17 male, live at home with my two sisters and parents. My older sister, 22, has been dating her boyfriend, 21 male, for 3 months now. He's been sleeping over at our apartment ever since they started dating, but the frequency of the sleepovers have been increasing over the past few weeks. Our apartment isn't tiny, but it's small enough that we all share a bathroom. The room doesn't have air conditioning and only has one window that doesn't really let a draft through. When you shower, the room steams up a ton. So my whole life we've just either left the door ajar or opened the door fully as soon as we stepped out of the shower and did the rest of our bathroom stuff. The first time my sister's boyfriend slept over, I was getting ready to go to bed in the bathroom and had the door closed but unlocked. I was taking off my boxer shorts when he walked into the bathroom. He immediately apologized, closed the door, and we never spoke about it again. Well, last week I thought I was home alone and was taking a shower in the afternoon with the door ajar as always. After I was done, I opened the bathroom door and continued with my routine. Lotion, face cream, stuff like that, and noticed that my sister had come home during my shower. When I was done, I walked into the kitchen to find my sister and her boyfriend having an argument. I didn't want to intrude, so I left and soon heard the front door fall closed. In the evening, I made dinner for our family, and while I was cooking, my other sister, 20, came and talked to me. Apparently, our older sister and her boyfriend's argument was about me and my showering habits. He thinks it's disgusting that I shower with the door ajar and feels uncomfortable with me using the bathroom in my own house. This shocked me because from the way our bathroom is set up, you can't even see the shower from outside the door. I went to my other sister and asked her if this was true, and she refused to talk to me. It's not as if I was the only one that showered like this. We all do. I'm just the only one taking showers in the afternoon or evening when her boyfriend is usually there, because that's when I come home from hockey practice. So, am I the arsehole for not completely closing the bathroom door while I shower? Someone says, any idea to why he finds it disgusting? Opie says don't know about him, but I'm openly queer, so maybe that's the issue. Opie gives information about why they keep the door open, and Opie says, and the main reason for keeping the door open and ajar is because we live in an old building and don't want any mold or whatever because it's too steamy inside. Someone suggests, could he be trying to peep on your sister? And Opie says, this is something multiple people have said, and I'm really worried it's something like him trying to peep on my other sister. So OP does give several updates in the same post and says, hi guys, okay, to make it easier I'm going to give my sisters names because otherwise I think it's going to get confusing. The sister whose boyfriend was the issue I'll call Ava, and my other sister Vic. Sister's boyfriend I'll call Ben. Today Vic came home pretty early, so when I heard her arrive I immediately asked her to talk about yesterday. Since some of you brought it up, I asked her if he actually used the word disgusting or if she thinks Ava was paraphrasing, and in her opinion Ava said it in a way she thought Ben had actually said it. I also asked her if he'd done anything to make her uncomfortable and she laughed it off, so I truly hope nothing happened there. When Ava came home, she was alone, so I asked her if she would talk to me and she agreed, even though she looked really uncomfortable about the whole situation. I asked her if Ben had actually said it was disgusting or if he only implied and said that he actually said it. I also asked her if she was mad at me or the situation. That's when she got super angry. She started going off at home how I apparently have always made every situation about myself and said some other unsavory things about me. After yelling at me, she left the kitchen and went to her room. Dramatic door slam and all, which kind of was the trigger for me maybe being a bit too petty. Again, our apartment isn't that huge, so because the kitchen door and my other sister's door was open, Vic heard the entire argument and came to the kitchen to tell me she's on my side. Back to the petty part. My dad is at a business dinner right now, but I'll edit this post with a second update when he comes home, because I'm going to tell him everything that's been said. I don't know if he'll care yet, but I'll tell him all the suggestions you guys gave me in the comments and tell him I'm worried about Ben. Also because it might not have been clear in my original post. I said that I live with my parents, with that I only mean my dad. It's not been long since my mum stopped living with us, so in the heat of the moment, I wrote the wrong thing. My sister Ava used to have an apartment one town away, but because of COVID she lost her job, meaning she couldn't pay rent anymore. She went back to school and has a different job now, but it's entry level and living costs are crazy where we live, so she's still at home. My other sister Vic has a dorm room at a university, but her roommates are all arseholes, so she prefers staying at our apartment when she doesn't have 8 AM classes. Ben still lives with his parents. Why? I don't know. Also, I don't know why they never stay at his place. That's one of the things I wanted to ask Ava, but she apparently thinks I'm the villain here. And lastly, we do have a second bathroom, but it only has a toilet and a sink, so it's not as terrible as some people think it is in the comments. Also, we all have our own rooms. They're just small. Update 2. Sorry it took me a bit to post this, but I talked to my dad. When he stepped through the door, I immediately asked him if I could talk to him about something, and he was really confused about what it's about. He actually asked me if I wanted to tell him if I had a girlfriend or boyfriend, lol. So we sat down in the living room and I asked him if he knew what happened yesterday, but he said he only knew that Ava was mad at me, nothing more. I told him everything and he was extremely shocked and also kind of mad. The first thing he suggested was also that Ben's upset because 2 days before Ben complained about me, I had friends over and cuddled with one of my male friends while watching a movie, and apparently he seemed annoyed by that. The second suggestion he had was just that he disliked me for whatever other reason, and that's why he was mad and called me disgusting. He went into Ava's room to talk to her about it, and I don't know what was said, but he came out like a half hour later and told me that Ben wasn't welcome to sleep over anymore. Of course, I asked him what happened during the conversation, but he was really vague about the entire thing. I'm going to make Vic try and talk to Ava to find out what's going on because now I'm actually really curious as to what happened. Sorry it's not that satisfying of an end for today. Also, is it fine if I keep adding on to this post or should I make a new one? I've read it for a while, but I've never posted properly before this. Update 3. Strap in because this update is actually kinda crazy. Some of you guessed it correctly. He's a homophobic prick who didn't want me to do, well, anything in my home because it disgusted him. Not a lot happened after my dad banned Ben from coming over. Ava wasn't talking to any of us, but she didn't argue with us either. So we all just kind of let her cool off. She only slept over at Ben's once, but also didn't try to convince my dad to let him come over. I had a hockey game on the 28th, and usually my entire family comes, but this time, surprise, surprise, Ava didn't come. I wasn't feeling too great afterwards and went to Vic to vent, and Ava apparently heard that and came into Vic's room to apologize to me. She says that she thinks she's in love with Ben, so she doesn't want to break up with him, but his behavior was stupid and bigoted. So that already confirmed that it was an issue because of my sexuality. We kind of made up, which we would have been forced to anyway, because we made plans on the 30th to go to a concert together. The 29th and 30th went great. Ava was talking to me again and we just kind of avoided the whole Ben topic altogether. The conflict and what the update is about was the 31st. Every year I go to watch the Rocky Horror Picture Show at our local theatre, and every year I dress up. The last 3 years I went as Brad, but this year I took 2 friends of mine who are a couple that decided to go as Brad and Janet. Me being me, I took this opportunity to go as Frankenfurter. If you don't know the Rocky Horror Picture Show, he's a self-described transvestite and definitely looks the part. We all had a great time, and let's just say I was pretty drunk and disheveled when I came back home. This was at like 4 AM and I'm gonna be honest, I was probably obnoxiously loud because I knew my dad and Vic wouldn't be home. Vic being at a college party and then her dorm, and my dad sleeping at his partner's house. I only took off my heels, nothing else, and went to the kitchen to eat something when Ben walked in. Who would have guessed my sister broke my dad's rule as soon as he was out? Seeing me, he went off on a tirade about how I'm disgusting, called me a homophobic slur, told me how no one would ever love me, and told me to go find a church because I was a disgrace. Funnily enough, I'm Protestant, meaning I was literally in church 10 hours before this interaction, celebrating Martin Luther with my entire family. He was loud as fuck, so of course my sister came out of her bedroom and told him to calm down, and said he should just get back to bed, because he was drunk. Well, he didn't like that and also started shouting at my sister how she was a slur for allowing me to dress like that, and I don't even know what else. Reminder, we live in an apartment complex, so of course someone heard us, because during his rant against my sister, one of our neighbours knocked and shouted through the door to ask if we're alright. I went to open it and Ben just kind of stormed off into my sister's room and came back a few minutes later in some clothes with his phone and left. Neighbour dude asked if we're okay again and he left. But since we confirmed that we were, he went back to bed. After I'd closed the door, Ava was already gone, so I just kind of got ready for bed. I never did get my post going out snack. Well, if the last update wasn't exciting enough for you all, then this surely has to be. I told one of my friends about it in the morning and her only reply was, I think I've read that in a book before, so I'm going to take all this with humour. And a tiny update 4. It's currently around midnight for me and it's only been a few hours since my last update, but something else just happened. I was feeling like crap about this whole situation, so I asked one of my friends if I could go over to his house, but his little brother is sick. So he asked if he could come over to my place. My dad was in his room, so I went to him and asked if it was okay, and he said it was fine for him to come over. Ava's room is right next to his room, and she had the door ajar. Yes, I do see the irony in the issue with the ajar door, and apparently heard what I said. My room is across from hers, so as soon as I went back to get out the spare blankets, she rushed over to complain to my dad about how unfair it is that I have sleepovers and she doesn't. My dad's only response was that I'm not having my boyfriend over, but a friend, and told her to go to bed. That's pretty clear to me that she does have an actual problem with me, not just her infatuation with Ben, making her upset with me. And this story's been updating quite frequently, so I'm certainly going to keep an eye out for more updates on that one. What a sad little man Ben is. Just an all-round awful person. But now, I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What would you do in this situation if you was OP? What do you think about the sister? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Now, just a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for getting involved in today's stories. Your love, your support, your time always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much for being involved, and hopefully I will see you in the next one. Take care and much love.